Greetings and welcome to my dear Sagittarians. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. Tarot of the Twin Sun is a functional division within the Order of the Twin Sun. Please take only what you will. This is a reading for the 1st of October 2022 at 1:25 Greenwich Mean Time. And the ninth house is open. So, firstly, we shall look into conjunction of Moon and the Ascendant, depending on your own degree of Sagittarius, solar, ascendant, or lunar. There is essentially a very close proximity of the Moon in Sagittarius, opening up the tone for October 2022. And this actually activates your second house with the trine with Saturn in retrograde in Aquarius, okay? Meaning that there are explorations of the mind and explorations of your emotional self, your etheric body, your subtle force, your aura, that essentially are gifting you with a small boon in terms of your work, especially unorthodox modes of work that you may have been working on. Or your work, or the sort of realities of finance, or the realities of means or mediums that come through your family or through essentially your most immediate environments in which you interact with your realities. And this colors you with a very special light, and that there is a strong creative capacity for you to represent something of an unorthodox way of doing things, okay? A very unique eccentricity, and that's one of the beautiful benefactors with the Moon in Sagittarius, trine Saturn in retrograde in your second house. Another interesting thing is that if you are working on projects that are based on not money, but actuality, sacrifice, doing things for a common or collective good in your environment, that is very beneficial for this time also. There's a change in the structure of the world that is occurring now that you can benefit from, especially with two planets, Mercury and Pluto in retrograde, with this harmonic aspect of Virgo and Capricorn. With Pluto and Mercury retrograde, essentially there's an accentuation of the first and ninth houses. Okay, these are Dharma houses, and it also creates another dharmic triangular sort of triangulation here with the fifth house, Uranus in retrograde. All these retrograde planets, damn it, are kind of difficult to maneuver. But for the time being, there's something about it that allows for a type of transformation in which you can find yourself in reality, in terra firma, and ground yourself in ways that have to do with the affluence of wealth. Artha, in the Purusartha division of Vedic understanding, is basically the ability to polarize to the gravitas of this earth, this existence, why we signed up to be humans on this spinning disk known as Earth. And essentially, with all this retrograde action in the Earth triplicity, there's an ability for you to accentuate something when it comes to the need or the want to essentially create a dharmic path, to create a path to walk on. So a lot of this has to do with two things, primarily the triangle of manifestation, of abundance, okay? That happens during a very chaotic period, especially with the Kendra houses, the first, third, seventh, and ninth houses, apparently, in a square aspect for the Grand Cross. So, essentially, what I'm seeing here is not being able to reach out to certain friends at this time. They seem to be really out there in terms of uh, their own dealings with their environment, their neighborhood, their surroundings when it comes to them trying to define whom they are, what they are doing. The voice of community is somewhat squelched or lessened. For now, it's very silent, and it's hard to sort of get support from those people or those siblings or those fraternities or sororities, essentially, trying to understand how common man or brotherhood is somewhat lost at this time. The thing is that other people that you pull in through the seventh house, through your descendant, essentially, they are encompassed with Mars energy, and this opposition between your need to explore in an astral way, your explorations of the mind, of your emotional capacity, of your of a free creative spirit, okay, a free spirit, is somewhat complex. It's opposed by Mars, okay, with this line here in the center. Mars in Gemini points to a lot of action that has to do with trying to find initiation, other people trying to find initiation. And the path of initiation is very illusory, okay? Usually it requires a guru, but teachers right now are somewhat slow to mind with Mercury still being in retrograde. It's going direct in October, within a few hours of this reading, I believe, which is a good thing. But with Mercury being conjunct Venus and Sun in the ninth house, there is a return of old connections that may not be at the right time, right place. It may feel like it's inauspicious. It's not good timing. Could be a return of old loves. But with the ninth house, usually they are very distant in nature. Ninth house is extremely foreign, exotic, but also it's of the higher intelligence. Okay, and intelligence usually is an isolating force. It tends to raise one up to a point where the one who is raised in terms of intelligence, the one who becomes spiritually attuned or becomes educated in some sort of way in terms of intelligence, they become unavailable. And that is the mystery of the ninth house, and that is the house of Sagittarius, the house of Jupiter and Bhagwan and Guru and teacher. All with that, with the Sun, solar energy, Venus squaring up to Jupiter in the third house in Aries, there also is a difficulty with education or trying to understand how knowledge is obtained right now. There's difficulty in finding insight, to shining light, and finding harmonics with other people in terms of that. With Jupiter and the Sun and Venus fighting off at an opposition in your third house of activity, of also moving into the fourth of home, in retrograde. Jupiter's in retrograde. There's difficulty in finding blessings in terms of your connections, as well as your studies, or like any form of knowledge you would try to impart or receive from the higher ups. It's difficult. So it's important that you wait until Mercury goes direct in order to see the clarity in that. And the difficulty is that Mercury is in its domicile, in its exaltation in Virgo, and it's in retrograde opposing Neptune in retrograde in Pisces, which is its home. And it's difficult because that essentially creates a realm of criticism. There's a lot of criticism coming through technology, coming through communities, and everyone's very toxic at this point in time. It's difficult because with Jupiter being in retrograde and Neptune being in retrograde conjunct in the houses of, in your third house, in the cusps of Pisces and Aries, It's difficult to find faith or perhaps become spiritually attuned right now, especially with the house of the Guru very much in critical sort of relapse. Okay. It requires essentially an ego death on a collective level. Okay, and we'll see that eventually as we move into Scorpio season, further on into fall. So, I would say that there is a desire for stability through the creative field for Sagittarians right now. Do not look for too much return in terms of profitability or reason within the creative unction or within your need to find a romantic interlude, sensuality, or even satiating those base needs in terms of the lower chakra systems, especially the solar plexus and below. It is difficult with with the North Node and South Node still being on the Scorpio and Taurus axis. North Node still conjunct Uranus in retrograde, aspecting negatively the second house. So the idea here is to find a sense of something you can devote yourself to. It has to do with hidden information, letting loose any sort of critical tensions that you may have in the mind, and being able to square up with that, being able to become realistic with that. That's very interesting. One thing you can do is actually create, once again, create a way to be eccentric, to do things unorthodox, to go against the grain, to go against the system in order to find a sense of finance or stability in what you do. I am seeing that discipline is required for this exploration that you're going through privately. And it's funny because the actions of others will actually help you to do this, to be unique. This has to do with the downfall of a culture, the downfall of a system, the reversal of a systems versus systems in terms of how to accrue wealth, how to do things in terms of family, and also your most immediate realities. Okay. This has to do with jumping timelines and being able to explore in such a way. Now, the real takeaway here is that there's an ability for you to astrally project for this month, especially on the 1st, and to essentially explore different venues of innovation. And through this, people will support you because they are learning through you in that respect. But of course, this is happening in your sleep time or in the nocturnal times. And it's important for you to be open to that. That's one thing that I want you to take away for sure. Now let's do a small tarot reading. I'm going to generate, I would say 9 times. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So, lo and behold, the Hermit is here. This activates essentially your 6th house and the energy of Mercury. Excuse me. And your 6th house is in the cusp of Gemini. And there's an activation through Mercury retrograde from the 6th to the 9th. So currently, for my dear Sagittarians out there, the Hermit brings about a way to be humbled by the path. Okay. This also speaks of the inner light that you contain to shine forth and illuminate that path. Okay. The thing is that it requires a lot of humbling. There is a wise way in order to embrace the intelligence that you are gifted without any sort of critical acclaim, without the mirror, not having to look at yourself as you're walking the path, to observe the path and to be humbled by the path is most certainly here. There's an element of darkness about this, in that the world is not prepared for the changes that it is going through. And the idea here is to find singularity in the way you maneuver to the curves of the path, okay? And there also is here, you're coming from a place with the Seven of Wands of trying to stave off the sort of hunger of others. That's what I'm seeing. There's this theme of people being hungry, and this can be metaphorical hunger, that forces them into modes of dispute. They're very much operating on the solar plexus chakra and the lesser, baser chakras, needing to manifest, needing to bring forward the Six of Rods, which comes across your ace, okay, of rods. So essentially tension, resistance. See, the thing is that you take that Ace of Rods, give it to the hand of the Hermit, and the Hermit does so in such a humbling way, walks the path of isolation, walks the path untreaded, but it is the only path. It is the one path. And the beauty of it is that it will activate a sense of the Emperor Aries energy, which is currently where Jupiter is in retrograde. Okay, so this is pointing to at least 3 to 6 months in time, possibly 4 or 4 weeks, 4 weeks or 4 months in time. The beauty of the Emperor, okay, is that he essentially encompasses the wisdom of the Fool, okay, the wisdom of the Fool moving into the higher elevated position of the Fool into the King's clothes, okay. And this allows for a rise in wealth, a rise in prosperity, a rise in wisdom, and he gains accolades. There's something about this of finding recognition. Now, the esoteric symbols of the Emperor involve this Ankh-looking type of caduceus and this golden apple, or this golden round, okay, which is symbolic of essentially the ability to hold and to lead, so something about a position of power and coming into a place of wealth and a throne is coming in the future. So it's a very stark contrast to the Seven of Wands, and the Hermit is a place of isolation. Emperor is also isolated, but he is lofted, and he's no longer walking. Okay, so the bearded man becomes the bearded man here. From bearded man Hermit to bearded man Emperor, and essentially that activates your third house, okay, which is a voice of leadership, should emerge once Jupiter goes direct, or Jupiter is benefically aspected in the future. So that is the best I can do for you right now. I do wish you well. Please wish me well on my move. I'm moving to situate myself in another part of the world, so I've been kind of delayed on readings, but wishing you well. Thank you. Bye-bye.